Commence primary ignition.
Hi, I'm Angus McGinnis. I play John Dutch Bandit, Gold Eater. I want to welcome you to the virtual Cantina Network.
Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of the Virtual Cantina Newsdesk. I'm your host, Gary O'Toole, and before we get started, just as a disclaimer, from time to time you may hear a voice in the background. No, it isn't the voice of the Force. It is the one and only Mr. Jeff Caffrey, who is along to keep me company while MVO is otherwise preoccupied. Jeff, how are you, sir?
Good. Just a little tired. It's early here on the West Coast, so ready to go.
Yeah, it's great to have you along, and thank you for popping in and keeping me company while we go through this. As you know, folks, we are 90 days out from Star Wars Celebration, so things are going to start happening thick and fast. So the show is pretty much going to be an open floor. If you have a burning thought or a question, please share it with us, and we will dive into anything that we have there. And later on, the reason why I'd imagine you are all here, we will, of course, be announcing the winner of our giveaway. But before we get started, just some light housekeeping. Please make sure, if you are not already within the group, head on over to our Facebook group and join us at Star Wars Celebration Japan 2025. We are hopefully approaching 71,000 members, so come along and join the crew. I promise you will not find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy. And of course, across all social media, if you can find us at Virtual Cantina Network. So, since we last spoke with myself and Mark at the helm, what's happened? Unfortunately, there hasn't been too much news that's released, but there is some, but we aren't predicting that things will kick into overdrive as of yet. But once they do, you will see a steady stream of guest announcements, exhibitor announcements, and some panel announcements, although I have seen across social media that it looks like fan panels. I'm not sure if it's fan panels or HoloNet news panels have actually already been announced on people's social media. So that's an interesting one. And then, of course, the question on everyone's mind was, what would the pricing and autograph schedule be like upcoming? Of which last night we got the announcement that from the 23rd of this month, you will be able to book your photo ops and autographs for Star Wars Celebration Japan. In particular, Jeff, I like that they had said for announced guests. They were very, very specific about that. So that's probably a little tell that there will be a lot of news that's going to be upcoming fairly sharpish, and we should see the guest list increase, of which it did. A couple of days ago, we got the news that Sam Witwer will be attending as well. I'm not sure if I read it right as attending all days, but another great guest if you are looking to add a signature to perhaps a Clone Wars piece or something of that nature.
He's a really cool guy. I've run into him at multiple celebrations, and whenever you see him doing an interview with his voice stuff and how he approaches characters, etc., it's amazing.
It is, and he's such a charismatic guy. He really does hold the room, and he's very, very funny as well. So anybody who is popping along, I would have no doubt recommending book a photo op or autograph with Sam. But from that, we had said if we were guesstimating correctly and our timelines follow previous celebrations, we should start to see sort of major announcements build within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I think we're starting to see that come to fruition. But in terms of announcements for the show itself, outside of that, there hasn't been too much other than if you are familiar with Jazzwares. So perhaps any of you with little Padawans or Sith apprentices will be familiar with Squishmallows. They will be in attendance, and anyone who collects the Micro Galaxy figures, they basically will have, I would imagine, a lot of those on show. And the Micro Galaxy stuff is beautiful. It's figures worth having, and the designs are always so cool, and it's well worth collecting. They've got some very cool pieces out there, and some quite rare ones as well. So one thing that I thought we'd touch on today, Jeff, and this is one that is probably a little bit of an elephant in the room. It's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, is that when we are traveling to these big international cons, unfortunately, we always have to consider the possibility that when it comes to travel arrangements, things will not go well. So if people in the chat want to drop predominantly where they're coming from, or whether their flights are direct, or whether they have to have a layover in another country, we would love to know, because when you're taking these long journeys, we have to deal with the possibility that whether it's stormy weather or there are mechanical issues, that your flight may be grounded, may need to be diverted and things like that. There are some considerations that need to be made. It's not such a nice topic to talk about, but what I've done is I've put together a list of things that I think will actually help a lot of people. And working in aviation, I hope this will be useful to people. But again, if you have any questions regards anything that I am talking about, please drop something into the chat, and we will do our best to answer them. So
I'm considering trying to do direct for sure, and otherwise I don't want to know if I want to go through San Francisco or try to hit a connection on the other side of the Pacific or in Hawaii. It's an interesting process. So
it is indeed. So, as we move through getting closer to celebration, we will, of course, talk about, the usual travel preparation things, but particularly with this, hopefully these are some tips that will come in handy. So first and foremost, you will never, ever hear this probably said anywhere, but when you are traveling, and I'm having to go through this in my head that I'm even mentioning this, when you are traveling, it is handy to know the contact information and details of your local aviation authority, your civil aviation authority. So again, Jeff, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if you Google and search for the Wikipedia page of civil aviation authorities, they actually have a really up-to-date list of the aviation authorities within the most prominent countries that you can think of. So the reason you need that is if you are traveling, there are certain legislations and protections in place where if your flight is delayed or diverted or cancelled or anything like that, you have got some right of leave where you actually can claim financial compensation. So that's quite important to have. So that's something that I would always keep handy on my person when I am doing my travel arrangements, along with my password and things of that nature. So wherever you are departing from, ensure that you have the relevant contact details for your local aviation authority. And what you would be looking for is the equivalent of their air passenger rights section. So for certain things that you've booked, you may be entitled to compensation so that you are not out of pocket for what you need to do. Also, then, something really simple that you should always be aware of is whatever airport you are traveling from, make sure you know where your airline's help desk is. It may sound like a really simple one, but I have heard horror stories of where, let's say, somebody is traveling via, let's say, Delta, but the flight might be operated by another airline. So they end up having to go to a different, help desk. And from that ensues more and more panic. And when you're traveling to these big international events and you have spent an awful lot of your hard-earned money, it is not the nicest thing to have to deal with stress of, if I miss my flight, does that mean then that I potentially miss my connecting flight? So that's something that I would advise. Also, then, if you are not flying direct, if you are going to be stopping over in another airport in another country, the same rule applies. Make sure you look up the airport that you are traveling to ahead of time. Usually within your flight booking, it will give you all the details already of your international terminal. So from that, then you can work out where the partnering help desk is, and where the areas are that you can actually go to get assistance, because unfortunately, with the way things go at the moment, not everyone is going to have the opportunity to get there a couple of days early before the con so that they can, bed in, become familiar with things, and be aware of that. I arrived at 27 just to be sure I wouldn't be late for Star Wars Celebration. There we go. Get in as early as possible. And for some people, that's going to be possible to get in nice and early. But for others, it's not the case. They are going to have to arrive maybe the day before, in which case they're going to be dealing with getting their bearings. And if they're not flying direct, they're going to be crossing multiple time zones. And the one big thing that's going to be affecting them is obviously jet lag, which is not the nicest thing in the world. And Jeff, you've traveled over this side of the pond before. You know what it's like. It's not the nicest
I
thing.
was heavily jet lagged when I got to Ireland, so it was not the best. I did a long sleep, as it were, when we arrived. So, but then I was raring to go. So,
yeah, but it is something to consider. It may sound trivial, but if you are able to get the relevant help you need, the potential for the rebooking of a flight or being put on standby, or there's always last minute cancellations that you might be able to get a flight from with maybe a different airline. So there are always travel options that are there with respect to that. So again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if everyone Googles the Wikipedia page for the Civil Aviation Authorities, please note the details of the aviation authority within your country and take the details from that then. But also on those websites, you will be able to find the specific legislation which will apply to you, and it will give you the terms and conditions of what you are entitled to should delays or cancellations arise. Now, there may be a consideration of if you have booked through a travel agent, you should be protected via, travel agents operate under a different type of legislation where you are protected in that sense, and you do have some stronger remit. But if you have booked directly yourself, that might be a different story. So it is vitally important to know your rights, in particular with relation to this, because the last thing you want to do, having spent your hard-earned money on this, is to drop another couple of $100 or euros, whatever it may be, on alternative arrangements, and in particular accommodation. And it's a high stress environment enough as is without having to deal with that stuff. So what is the pricing like, Jeff, just out of curiosity, for going stateside to Japan at the moment?
From the West Coast, it's right around $1,000 currently, US. But yeah, some of the what you just mentioned, some of the rules have been updated here in the States recently. So there's a little more strict when it comes to the airlines having to compensate you, and they I think they up the amounts of things and different stuff like that. So just keep an eye out for that. But yeah, right around 1,000 currently, I believe, and depends on how you work your flight as well. So if you're flying into Haneda, is that the main airport in Tokyo? Anyways, there's two airports, and one's closer to the city center, I believe, and the other one's out in Chiba or past where the convention center is. And coming into the one that's closer to the city center is a little more expensive, I think. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to fly in maybe to closer to Tokyo, and then fly out closer to the Celebration Convention Center at Messi Mesa, whatever.
The Makuhari Mesa,
yeah. I can't. Right now, I'm sort of not all there just because it's early on a Saturday, and I like to sleep in normally.
Yeah, who doesn't
bear
like
with me? But yeah, so it seems like it's floating around $1,000 currently.
And is that in terms of going a couple of days early to give yourself time to bed in and get over the jet lag, or
I don't know if there's a price bump closer to the con, like if they have more, if the amount of flights or passengers is up. But I'm looking at I'm coming in I think I'm leaving here Sunday before con and getting to Japan on Monday. and checking in there, and then staying till the following Tuesday, and then coming back. That's currently the plan. So, I want to give myself a little buffer on the end of the con as well. So hopefully get to check some things out and do other stuff non-con related, both prior and after.
Yeah, and I think obviously considerations like that are going to play a role for everybody. So I'll be curious, is there anybody in the chat who is arriving literally the day before that hasn't got any time to bed in, or are most people traveling a couple of days ahead of time to maybe do some sightseeing and bed in? Be sure to drop some messages in the chat and let us know. It's these international cons are always so in MSP to so from Heck Fuzzy, MSP to SCA to Japan arrive 10th of April a wee bit early. Yep, it's a nice time to arrive a couple of days early. Give yourself time to find your bearings and to get where you need to go and hopefully do some sightseeing. Haneda Airport is closer to Tokyo Center. Narita Airport is closer to the con center. Perfect. So Sandra, that's perfect. So Sander, is it fair to say that you might see most people flying into Narita, or is there much of a price difference with Haneda versus Narita? I would imagine if you're maybe flying to closer to the con, it may be a little bit more expensive. Took me around 1.5 hours to get through, so go to calculate. And there's a great tip from Sander there, folks. Getting through customs at midday took 1 to 1.5 hours to get through. And I would say that is a huge one as well for our friends in the States, just having personal experience with it. Make sure you give yourself enough time to get through TSA, which is vitally important. So again, so many considerations are coming into this, especially with the cost. You know, it's not a cheap thing to go to, but like as I mentioned on a previous stream, for me, with it being technically 3 days, for me, it wasn't worth it. You know, if it was perhaps a 5-day con, I would have gone, okay, maybe the cost is worth it. But it's a very, very long way to travel for a convention. So I'm curious, are there many people in the chat who are traveling specifically for the con and then heading out, or are there some sightseeing or other activities which you're looking to undertake? Here we go. One from Brad, arriving April 6th to sightsee Disney before. Well, there we go. There's the first one. I was waiting for a Disney visit to pop up. And then Ryan is arriving early and doing the tour with MTA. So yeah, so sightseeing is on the cards, and rightly so. Are there many people heading to Disney? I'm wondering, are Disney going to put on many events in line with Star Wars in terms of celebration?
Yeah, I'm curious if they're going to announce some sort of Star Wars night.
Star Wars night,
thing, yeah. Which is become sort of the norm when the show is in either Orlando or here in the LA area, Anaheim.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. But I know that a lot of the group members are doing the parks a few days prior to con, and then other types of activities. So yeah, like Eric says here.
Lots of activities before Disney, yeah. And Eric, if whatever your plans are, feel free to share them on the group or even on the chat here. I'd imagine there are people who would like to do some things that maybe others would suggest that they haven't think of. Course Cat Films, I completely agree. I bet Disney will be absolutely jammed, and heading there after Celebration is probably a safer bet. I think, correct me if I'm wrong again, Jeff, but usually the Star Wars nights when they've gone on at Celebration, particularly in Florida and Cali, they've just been absolutely full to the gills.
Yeah, 2022 here in Anaheim at Disneyland, the original park, of course. It was packed. It was madhouse. Batuu was just, full to the brim. So, it's it can be quite overwhelming if you're not ready for it. But it's fun to be there with a slew of other Star Wars fans, and that, especially in that environment, it's a great place to go. I love visiting Batuu when I get the chance. Did Gary freeze up? Well, I guess I'll have to talk a little bit here and throw up some of these other ones. Reynald talking about just going for Celebration, but the MTA tour was...
Hey, folks, I have no idea what happened there. Something just dropped off.
All right. Well, you're back. It's good.
I'm back. Thank you very much.
I was
There
going to BS for a minute.
must be some pesky Jawas in there.
Oh yeah.
And
But
Reynolds, I completely agree. The tour would definitely be too good to pass up. 100% agree. Any tour and any activities like that are well worth doing. And there we go from Veronica. There's an unofficial 501st Legion meet update planned. Yep. So all my fellow 501st members will no doubt be there. So, you know, if you see anyone from 501st, we're always happy to take a selfie or a pose for a photo. So please come over and say hi. Eric is staying in Ginza for 4 days, then Uresu, which is close to Disney, in 20 minutes Uber train to Makar, then Godzilla Hotel after the con. Godzilla Hotel, I salute you, Eric. That's one that I would love to do myself. And also, Jeff, that's probably a fair thing that we should mention as well. The transportation is outstanding.
Yeah, they have a great transit system, right?
Yeah. And again, like if somebody's staying 30, 40 minutes outside of the location, it's not going to be an issue for anybody at
right.
all.
They should have, regular, simple travel options. I'm just, I wanted to, for con, I have a convention close hotel. So I've gone to 10 other Star Wars celebrations, and I've learned over the years, the closer I am to also getting older as time has gone by. But over the years, the closer I am to the con, the more comfortable, the more happy, the less stressed I am. So having that kind of proximity is always a plus, but some people can't or don't want to, specifically, like if you're going to stay near Disney and spend some time at Disney and do con, there's other options. Also, I don't know what the pricing is. I think most of the block hotels were closer to Disney.
Yeah, I think so on this occasion. Yeah.
But I have gotten into the habit of, once the dates are announced, I'm like jumping on the websites and looking for deals prior to them doing anything officially. And so I actually booked, along with some other group members, the Godzilla Hotel prior to the con, and then a con adjacent hotel for the con.
Yeah, and I think that's always a big consideration for everyone. It certainly is for me. Like anytime we've gone to Celebration in London, we've stayed at the Aloft, which is the hotel that most of the actors and staff and crew stay in. That's just the way it was for us on 2 occasions where we were close and we had actually booked enough that we were able to get a deal. But there has to be that consideration as well of the closer you're staying to the convention center, the more the rates go up. And as we said, for a 3-day con, this is not the issue. Close to the con released no plan. Yeah, Eric, when we're talking, what would we deem being close to the con on this occasion released? Are we talking within a 5-10 mile radius, or would we consider something closer than that?
I personally am always about walking distance to the con.
Yeah, I agree.
So the hotel I have is, I'll be there in less than 5 minutes, I believe, if not quicker. And again, it's not having to rely on any kind of transportation is my ideal thing. But I think you're going to have people that are sort of spread out and around there, and 10 miles is, as long as you're near the train or you have that kind of access to some kind of transportation, it's not bad. But if you're trying to traverse that in other ways, it could be a lot longer than you expect. I'm used to LA traffic, so I could go 10 miles and it could take 20 minutes. I could go 10 miles and it could take an hour and a half.
No, exact same for us here in Dublin and traffic. But I mean, it is a huge consideration as well that people, if they can, will stay as close as possible to avoid having to spend money on transport, where they can put their hard-earned money towards exclusive merch, which I would imagine there will be more dropping off. Here we go. I got 6 days at the Appa next door to the com for 1,000. Oh, Ian, 6 days is not bad. Ian, with 1,000, I think £1,000 would be, well, the euro to the pound at the moment is awful. So that's actually a pretty good deal. curious to know, for anyone traveling from Europe, what was the prices of the hotels that you found, or if you've booked Airbnbs or apartments, what was sort of the standard price that you were paying? Because the euro to the yen hasn't been great, so I'm curious to see what the balance sheet looks like for people's accommodation. So hopefully we'll have some people from Europe who can drop messages in. And Jeff, from that then, do you think, from your perspective, that you like staying close to the con, same as myself, how do you find that for hustle and bustle? Do you find it a better atmosphere for the con, or do you think
Well,
staying outside?
there's always some sort of activity that pops up in
Yeah.
in somewhere that's nearby, because there'll be a lot of con goers there. I've been to some amazing sort of impromptu gatherings and events, in adjacent hotels to the Celebration Convention Center, wherever it was, that make that a part of the experience so much more than just being like, I remember, was this Star Wars Celebration 1 or 2? I believe it was probably 2. I remember that it was still daylight hours, and we didn't have the knowledge of all the any kind of extracurricular events going on, and they also didn't do a lot back then. And we were back in the hotel at before the sun went down, and hitting up the hotel bar for to-go drinks to drink in the hotel room in Indianapolis, which on Sunday was dry, which was a little bit of a weird experience. I'd never gone through. I don't drink a lot, but when I drink, I expect to be able to go buy a drink, unless it's between the wee hours of the morning when they stop serving. And so yeah, that was it was like we were just doing our own thing and hanging out. And then I started to learn about things like the 501st Bash and other events going on, and what was called back then Forcella, which now has evolved into Bunta Eve for the most part. And also we're doing this year, we are doing our Not So Virtual Cantina special edition, because it's this traditionally Not So Virtual Cantina is sort of just a sort of a gathering, a hangout, and we've upped the game a little bit this year, and we've also sold out. So there is a wait list, I believe. But if you didn't get tickets, you're gonna be a little bit disappointed, probably, because these tend to be very fun events, and we have been able to get some really cool talent to come through and hang out with us. And so you may want to keep an eye out for that for the next one down the road, if you didn't get a chance to get a ticket for this year.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I will say as well is that don't be too disappointed if you didn't get tickets for this, because with it being Star Wars and it being the community that we have, there are going to be so many other events going on, from unofficial events to, there you go, there's a Legion Members Bash as per usual planned. I believe tickets are still on sale. And Veronica, where is it being hosted? Actually, I haven't had a chance to look at any details for the
I heard that one is actually in the APA hotel adjacent to the convention center, but in like a ballroom, I believe, probably downstairs. They also have a bar that's on the top floor, which was originally going to be our Not So Virtual Cantina location, but it has it's a top floor of a hotel. They have a capacity limit that we were worried we would breach, and so that event got moved. But you can see Reynald is looking forward to it,
and rightly so, may I say.
It'll be a 5-minute drive or 15-minute walk from the convention center proper, so that's fairly close. If your hotel was something like that, I would say that would be a great one as well, if you're not able to be right next door or something.
Yeah, and there, from any other groups that will be there, whether it's official or unofficial, there will absolutely be some form of meetups and social gatherings and things like that. So that's the one thing with Star Wars Celebration is nobody is left out at all. So we're coming up to 90 days to go, folks. And as we've said, we're predicting things are going to come thick and fast. So putting it out to the floor there, share your comments with us below. What announcements are you hoping for, whether it's an actor being announced, whether it's a particular panel? What are you hoping to see? Let's see your suggestions and see what page are we on. I think, Jeff, based on what we've seen, I don't think it's outside the realm of the possibility to say that a strong shout is a Skeleton Crew panel.
Oh, I would hope so.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be.
That show, I don't know what your thoughts were on it, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, not to give spoilers away, the last episode for me, I thought was one of the weaker ones, but overall as a show, a solid 9 out of 10 for me. Absolutely brilliant.
I thought they did a fairly good job of actually sort of tying up some of the loose ends, and
they've opened up some more, which is going to be quite interesting.
Leave the right amount of stuff open, and will expand obviously into other properties and other upcoming things, like maybe Mandalorian Grogu or something along those lines. So
yeah, and you know, I not to be giving anything away for anybody who hasn't seen it. Don't worry, I'm not spoiling it. But I can't imagine there won't be a season 2, or at least somebody's story continuing in some shape or form, because it just hit every angle.
What I loved is how they incorporated the kids into sort of the lore by showing, with the final credits for the last episode, showing the up close shots of Wim's data pad. Basically the stories he was reading constantly as they went along, and then the final shot was them on the onyx cinder. So that was.
And can I just say, thank God you spotted that, because the amount of people that missed it.
I actually saw it and it didn't register the first time, and then I heard people talking about it, and I went back and was like, oh yeah, very cool. We just did a watch along with the amazing Dawn Dininger on Thursday, who played Numa, the mother of Neil, the little elephant character. She was the principal actor in that costume, and also works for Legacy, and worked on probably building the heads and the siblings and other creatures and robots and all the fun stuff that they do.
Well, and that was one of the main suggestions I said. I think with MVO, that's one of the big things for me, is I think there has to be some sort of a creature feature panel of some sort with the amazing work that they did during.
They did it right this show, I thought, with the amount of creatures that were present, and then the callbacks, the Easter eggs. I'm all for them. I don't care if it's fan service. Having Brutus being basically the Wolfman from the original trilogy, Star Wars, before it was A New Hope, and before it was Special Edition. Having random characters in the bar like the Wolfman that has been replaced with another character, another creature. But so having all that stuff I thought was really cool. They did some Captain EO callbacks and different fun stuff. So
retcon some Captain EO. I think I seen an article, somebody was talking about it, but so many Easter eggs.
And then all the references just to 80s movies in general, which was very much what it was like. And it was also the way it kind of turned out. Don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, but having it sort of being retro in itself with those references sort of made a lot more sense with that, them being sort of isolated, and finding out that they were whatever, sort of left in the dark. But we've got a lot of people talking about things they're looking forward to. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we were to put it out to the group, how are we for Skeleton Crew out of 10? For those of you who have finished your journey, what are you giving it out of 10? Let's hear your thoughts. I thought in the last episode, actually, Jeff, that there was a prequel reference to a certain character. The wording was quite the same. Again, we won't spoil it here for anyone who hasn't seen it. Maybe that'll be another topic of conversation behind closed doors. But yeah, like you said, I don't care if it's fan service. It's great. It makes things more interesting.
It also sparks that, like, oh yeah, like, especially if it's something that's not like blatant. So here we go. We have some different thoughts.
Oh, here we go. Troy with an 8 out of 10. Nice. Ian with 9 out of 10. Yep. 10 out of 10 reflection catching eyes from Mickey. Yeah, I agree. I give it a 9. I just don't give it a 10 because there was no actual Jedi that showed up.
Jedi adjacent, yeah.
Yeah.
Agree with Charlie. I would hope so that the kids were really into it, because that really, I would think, I would think it's a good kind of on ramp for youngsters.
Spinal Tap 11 for Skeleton Crew. There we go. Reynolds has said it better than we ever could. But you know what's interesting, though, as well? I think this is going to have to be a major consideration of if they are going to do a season 2, which, if I was a betting man, I'd say they are. And 10 from Andrew. Yep. So very, very high scoring. I think they're going to have to move fast, because if they wait 3 or 4 years between this, the kids are going to be a lot older in real life. And I think it's going to maybe take away some of the childhood wonder that made the show exactly what it was.
It's already been 2.5 years or so.
And because
they were shooting in 22. I'm not sure exactly what part of the year. But yeah, so that, and we've seen, if you've seen any of the press, the kids do look a bit older already. So hopefully they're going to jump on that and kind of.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to.
And then maybe accelerate the story a little bit just to make up for that or something, and not be just like immediately after the events of this, maybe somewhere along the lines or something, just to sort of make up for that. Who knows? I don't know how they do that stuff.
Yeah, well, you know what? The only thing is, I seen a comment on Twitter earlier today where this would be a potential candidate for a show where no time jump would be necessary at all. It would be a candidate where you could literally just kick off like 10 minutes after the finale. There's enough little breadcrumbs and avenues that you could go down.
Yeah, that's sort of that Rogue One to New Hope connection or something.
Yeah, like we said, even though it just left us with enough breadcrumbs to follow along with, there's so many other avenues that they could go down. By the way, Jeff, you mentioned the legend that is Neil. Do we have the T-shirts still available? Has everyone seen our Neil Nation?
Is that graphic in here? I don't think No, I didn't get the graphic loaded, unfortunately. But yes, go to here. Let me pop this guy up here.
Yeah, perfect.
Where is it? I haven't been in here in a minute. Here we go. TeePublic. You can go check it out there and find many things, including our Neil Nation, which from our last watch along, excuse me, we heard word that the young actor that played Neil was actually had possibly purchased some of our Neil Nation merch.
Phenomenal.
So that's really cool. I love that. But yeah, there's a lot of fun shirts and stickers and all different things over there. So if you get an opportunity to go check it out, you can support the VCN.
Absolutely. So, guys, we're just coming up on a couple of minutes left. So, what do you think the next 2 to 3 weeks hold, Jeff? Are we looking at announcements that you think will come fully thick and fast, or do you think they're going to hopefully space it out a little bit more? Because I remember there was a lot of confusion around the last celebration, and I think some in Orlando as well, where everything just seemed to come in batches or just on top of one another, that there didn't seem to be any sort of structure as such, or
Yeah, I would.
What's the nicest way of putting it? It seemed a bit chaotic, to say the least.
Clustered. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope that they start to do, I like the idea of announcing multiple guests at once, but not too many at a time. And, a regular kind of weekly thing would be good, but they could do, every other week at first and then kind of tighten it up and announce more closer to the con. And I'm sure we're going to have to wait for the big names until much, much closer. Well, yeah. They've done it so many different ways. It's really hard to gauge sometimes what they're actually going to do. So, I would imagine they will hold back a few towards the end, just because that's what they like to do, like play their cards at the end or whatever. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I hope they sort of do a regular announcement thing like they had done on a specific, Tuesday or whatever it was that they had gone through for the last couple of cons, just to have us kind of in the mindset of looking forward to something that might be popping up.
Yeah, but I think also it's maybe another consideration is that it is a prequel anniversary coming up. Everybody has seen the new logo popping up. So I would imagine that has to be in their thinking in some shape or form. I can't imagine there's not something that they are holding back specifically for that. I don't think they're going to be going through all of that trouble just to drop that little nugget without it having a sort of an end game, if you like.
Yeah, so there's, what is it, 20 of Revenge of the Sith. It's 10 years for Force Awakens. So they could do a double kind of connection there, I would think. I would imagine the Revenge of the Sith would be the big panel or something. Sort of like they did in Chicago, they did the anniversary of the Phantom Menace, but that one seemed a little lackluster, and they did it on a Monday, which was a weird day to even have for that con. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see and what they kind of lean into versus what they maybe cover less than they should. Oh, here we go. Sam Jackson, yes.
It's not the first time we've heard that, Eric, and I don't think it's going to be the last. Everyone just wants to see that purple lightsaber raised one more time.
Yeah, so
seems like they're going to breadcrumbs. Yeah, Veronica, I completely agree. I think it is a case that they are dropping little tidbits as they go with, but that's only worthwhile if the end game is actually worth the breadcrumbs being dropped, that people just don't eventually go, oh, here, we're waiting too long and people lose interest. So, but yeah, I think that's the way that they're moving towards it, is that it's just going to be little hints and breadcrumbs being dropped along the way.
Yeah, we have to consider though also that this one is international. It is going to be harder. I mean, I would imagine it'd be harder to get a lot of talent there based on cost and availability, etc. Having longer travel times, etc. Having Celebration in Anaheim gives you the opportunity. You would think that there's a lot of people that are local already, and then
a bigger talent pool.
They may be scheduling things and come in around that time for work already or whatever. So, and also they can, they could actually, I think, is that what some of the Mando folks did? They popped over from like a hot set
from when they were filming. Yeah, exactly.
Came into the panel, right? So, that kind of availability is going to drive who we see there, I think, and some people don't like to travel distances like that, so it'll be interesting to see.
It will be. And yeah, and they had that snowstorm in Chicago. That's why George did a video call. Yep. So, and there we go. We've mentioned something like that with a weather event, which is like what we talked about at the start. Exactly. Don't disappoint us. Could not have said it better myself. And before we move to our end reveal, then Jeff, where we announce the winner of the ticket, which I'm sure why everyone is here listening to me. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here listening to me. Official picks confirmed again as being the go-to for the autographs and photo ops. I would have to imagine that we are going to see an increase in costing compared to the last celebration, is my guess.
You think they are more expensive version of that? Or is
Yeah,
it
I
just that
think
they've
it's
upped what they do, or is it
yeah,
just
I think it's gonna be, but also with this being, as we said, a couple of prequel anniversaries and also an anniversary for TFA as well, if they decide to do something, I can't imagine there might be more multi-photo ops put in, let's say whether it's, as an example, if it was the two Anakins, let's say if it was Hayden and Matt, something like that. I can't imagine that there's not an opportunity for multiple photo ops with something like this since they haven't been there for a while. I would imagine the photo op and autograph scheduling will be expanded significantly, but unfortunately I could see that being at a significant additional cost. I would imagine the costs are going to go up for that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that actually is, or how they
What
do
it
it.
amounts to. Yeah. So Jeff, shall we put people out of their misery and get to it?
All right, let me just throw a quick graphic together here, and let's spin the wheel.
And the winner is Troy. Congrats, Troy. You have won the 3-day ticket giveaway to Star Wars Celebration Japan. Congratulations.
Yes, Troy, congrats for sure. That's very cool. Let me find your graphic again. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Yes.
And again, folks, thank you so much to everyone who entered. We can only do what we do because you come and give us your time, and that we're able to sit and have these conversations with like-minded people. And hopefully you'll continue to support us in the future and any other things that we do, of which there will always be things on the horizon from the Virtual Cantina Network. That
And
just about covers. Yo, there he is.
There's Troy's reaction. Good
There we
on me
go.
for hanging out the whole show to make sure you saw who won.
OMG is right. Hopefully, Troy, that's a nice start to 2025 for you. And as we can see, it says it all about the VCN, that everyone is so happy for Troy, Jeff. That just sums up us up here at the VCN. Well, folks, that's just about it from myself and Jeff. But before we go, we do have to announce some upcoming scheduling, which is going to be taking place. Tomorrow, we have the Jedi Archives, which is going to be looking at the High Republic Crash and Burn one-shot. Monday, then, we will have Clone Wars Revisited, where the focus will be on Season 1, Episode 16. On Wednesday, we will have a new episode from the Daughters of the Galaxy. And then Thursday, which is one I think everyone will jump on board with, it is the VCM watch-along of Andor Season 1 in the build-up to Season 2, which I think everyone awaits bated breath for the release of Andor Season 2.
You are welcome, Troy. Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun leading up and then having that fully fresh in our minds prior to the release of the second season, and being able to, just have that much more of the experience kind of expanded. It's going to be they have a lot to kind of live up to, so hopefully they do it well. And
Season 1 was the perfect blueprint, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I've heard that Season 2 is going to be broken up more in terms of the time frames, but leads directly into Rogue One, which will be interesting to see. Again, like you had mentioned, having the jump off from Skeleton Crew to Season 1 to Season 2, it's going to be cool to see that kind of direct connection.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And we've said they have a lot to live up to. Season 1 of Andor was just perfect Star Wars. That was the blueprint, that was the standard. But I think they've got a lot of pressure on them now, because I think for a lot of people, Skeleton Crew was just such a welcome surprise that's raised the bar further. So people aren't going to want to go from the heights of Skeleton Crew to something that they deem lower. So I think Andor Season 2 has to get it right, and I think it will.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in and being with us here in the Newsdesk over on the Virtual Cantina Network. We are speeding along to 90 days towards celebration. We're going to be back with you in a couple of weeks, and we will see what further news breaks and what other things we can put on the table for you. But until then, Jeff, thank you so much for popping along, and to everyone else, may the force be with you.
Bye-bye.